The dust rose before the horse did. It came in a low, creeping wave across the road, curling over boot prints and wagon ruts, whispering against the dry wood of storefronts as if the town itself were trying to remember something it had buried. By the time the rider appeared, the air already knew him. He did not hurry. The horse moved steady and tired beneath him, ribs faintly visible beneath a coat the color of old ash. The man sat straight despite the long miles stitched into his shoulders. His hat was pulled low, brim cracked from sun and years. There was a scar along his jaw, white and clean, like something that had decided not to heal properly. No one spoke his name. Not at first. A pair of boys paused their game beside the water trough. A woman standing in the doorway of the general store stilled, her hand pressed to her apron. Even the piano inside the saloon faltered one wrong note hanging in the heat before silence took it. The rider drew up in the center of the street. He looked older than the town remembered. Or perhaps the town had grown younger in its forgetting. Eli Mercer, someone said at last, not loudly. The name drifted. Eli did not turn toward it. He swung down from the saddle with care, boots hitting the ground in a dull thud that carried farther than it should have. He rested a hand briefly against the horse's neck, as if thanking it for something neither of them had chosen. The sheriff stepped out from the saloon. Calder was thicker now, heavier through the middle, but the badge still sat pinned to his vest like it had been hammered there. His eyes were small, watchful, the kind that measured a man before deciding whether he was worth the trouble of killing. "Well," Calder said, wiping his hands slowly on a cloth that had already seen too much use. "Ain't that a thing?" Eli met his gaze. There was no anger in it. That was what unsettled people first. "You took your time coming back?" Calder went on. Eli glanced down the street, past the hitching posts, past the sagging porch of the boarding house, past the place where the gallows had stood once temporary, but not temporary enough. "Didn't figure I was invited?" he said. A few men laughed, low and uncertain. Calder smiled without showing his teeth. "Last I recall, you weren't asked to leave. You were run out." Eli nodded once, like a man acknowledging a weather report. "That's right." The silence stretched. Behind them, a door creaked open. A figure stepped out onto the balcony above the saloon, a woman in a pale dress, one hand gripping the railing as though the wood were the only solid thing left in her life. Her name was Clara Whitlow. Eli saw her the same moment she saw him. There was no recognition at first. Only curiosity. Then something like fear. Then, slowly, something else, fragile and dangerous as a spark in dry grass. Calder followed Eli's gaze. His smile shifted, tightened. "You got business here?" he asked. Eli did not look away from the balcony. "Maybe—" Calder's voice dropped. "You best decide quick. Town's got no use for ghosts?" Eli finally turned back. "Seems to me," he said, quiet as the dust, "you're still burying the wrong men." That was enough. Two deputies stepped out from behind the sheriff, hands already hovering near their guns. The air thickened. The horse shifted its weight, sensing something the people could not yet name. Calder studied Eli for a long moment. "Let him be," he said, waving a hand as though brushing off a fly. Toward the livery. Toward the place where men went when they needed to stay without belonging. He did not look back. But Clara did. The auction was set for Sunday. Word had spread in the quiet, efficient way of towns that understood cruelty as a form of order. By Saturday evening, men had begun to arrive from neighboring ranches, boots polished, pockets heavy, voices loud with the kind of confidence that comes from believing no one will stop you. Clara remained upstairs. She had been brought to town 3 months earlier under the pretense of employment housekeeping. They had said maybe tending bar. It had not taken long for the truth to settle in. A debt, Calder had explained. Her father's, though he had been dead near a year. Paperwork had been produced. Signatures no one could verify. It did not matter. Everything had a price in that town. Clara had not wept in front of them. Not once, but at night, when the saloon emptied and the lanterns burned low, she would sit by the window and stare out at the dark stretch of land beyond the buildings, as though willing it to open and swallow her whole. On Saturday there was a knock at her door. She stiffened. "Come in," she said, her voice steady despite the way her hands curled into the fabric of her skirt. The door opened. Eli Mercer stepped inside. He removed his hat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. "You shouldn't be here," Clara said at last. "Probably not." She studied him. There was something familiar in his stillness, though she could not place it. "Not yet. They'll kill you," she said. Eli shrugged slightly. "Been told that before." A faint, humorless smile touched her lips. It vanished just as quickly. "You don't know what this is," she said, "what they're doing." "I got an idea." Her eyes hardened. "Then you know you can't stop it." Eli moved closer to the window, looking out at the darkened street. "Maybe not. Then why? Because someone ought to try." The words hung between them. Clara's breath caught, though she tried to hide it. "You don't even know me," she said. Eli turned then, really looking at her. "Don't have to." Something in his gaze unsettled her more than the threat downstairs ever had. "People don't do things like that," she said quietly. "They used to." A long pause. "Before?" she asked. Eli did not answer. Instead, he reached into his coat and set a small pouch on the table. It landed with a soft, heavy sound. Clara stared at it. "What's that?" "Enough," he said. "For what?" "For them to listen," she shook her head. "You think you can just buy your way into this? They'll take your money and do it anyway." "Maybe." "Then you're a fool," Eli nodded, accepting it. "Could be." Clara stepped closer, her voice lowering. "Why?" she asked, almost a whisper now. "Why would you do this?" Eli hesitated. "Just for a moment, then, because no one did it for my sister." The room went still. Clara's expression shifted, the anger draining out of it, replaced by something softer, more dangerous. "I'm sorry," she said. Eli picked up his hat. "Don't be," he replied. "Just be ready." Sunday came with heat that pressed down like a hand. No chains, no visible force. But the way the crowd parted for her, the way eyes followed without meeting hers, it was a different kind of restraint. She stepped onto the platform. The auctioneer cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, 50. The voice cut through the air like a blade. Heads turned. Eli stood at the edge of the crowd, hat low, dust still clinging to his coat as though he had ridden straight out of the past. The auctioneer frowned. "Sir, we haven't 75? Murmurs rippled outward. Calder's eyes narrowed. "Now hold on," he said, stepping forward. "This ain't 100. Silence. The number settled heavily over the town. Clara's heart pounded so loud she was certain they could hear it. Calder descended from the platform, moving slowly toward Eli. "You got a death wish, Mercer?" he asked. Eli reached into his coat and pulled out the pouch. He tossed it. It landed at Calder's feet with a dull thud. "Count it," Eli said. Calder didn't move. "Don't need to," he replied. "This ain't about money." Eli's hand drifted, almost lazily, toward his gun. "Everything's about money," he said. "You just forgot." The deputies shifted. The crowd leaned back, instinctively making space for what was coming. Calder smiled again, but there was nothing light in it now. "You always did think you were better than this place," he said. Eli shook his head. "No," he said. "I just knew it could be worse." The first shot came from the left, no warning. Eli moved before the sound fully formed, his gun clearing leather in one smooth motion. The world narrowed to heat and motion and the sharp, metallic taste of decision. Two men fell before they understood they'd been part of it. Calder fired next. The bullet caught Eli in the side, spinning him half a step. He steadied, fired back. Calder staggered, the impact driving him to one knee. The street erupted, shouts, gunfire, horses screaming. Clara dropped to the platform, hands over her ears, the world dissolving into noise and dust, then silence. It came all at once, heavy, final. Eli stood alone in the street, barely. Blood darkened his shirt, spreading slow and deliberate. Calder lay a few feet away, eyes open to a sky that did not care. The crowd had retreated to the edges, pressed against buildings, unsure what they had just witnessed or what it meant. Eli lowered his gun. He swayed. Clara rose unsteadily, descending the platform. She crossed the distance between them, each step careful, as though the ground might give way. "You're hurt," she said, her voice trembling despite her effort. Eli managed a faint smile. "Been worse. That's a lie." "Yeah." She reached for him. He let her. "Why?" she asked again, softer now, not demanding. "Just needing." Eli looked at her for a long moment. "Because someone ought to," he said. His knees gave then. Clara caught him as best she could, lowering him to the dust. Around them, the town watched. No one moved to help. No one moved to stop them. Eli's breathing slowed. "Horse is yours," he murmured. "Ride west, don't stop." Clara shook her head, tears cutting clean lines through the dust on her face. "Come with me." Eli's gaze drifted past her, out toward the horizon. "Can't," he said. A pause, then softer. "But you can." His hand tightened briefly around hers, then loosened. The wind stirred. Dust rose. And for a moment, it almost looked like the town might disappear beneath it.